Listen to this episode if you are trying to optimize your productivity as a business owner, but in ways that work for you and your personality. Your biggest asset as a small business owner is your time. You've heard that before. Time is finite. We only have so many hours in a day, but as a business owner, we know how wonderful it would be for us to have more hours in the day, to be more productive, and to be able to get more done in less amount of time. Today, we have the honor of talking to Amber de la Garza. She is the productivity specialist. We dive in to how to be more productive for you, how to really make sure that you are creating a schedule that makes sense, as well as what does a quote unquote successful schedule really look like. We are so excited to have this conversation, welcoming Amber de la Garza. Hi, Amber. Thanks so much for being here.
Thank you for having me. I'm looking forward to chatting.
Yeah, I can't wait. First things first, just introduce who you are, what do you do, and what is your vibe in business?
Yeah. So I am a productivity coach, specifically for small business owners. I
Yes.
have been doing this since 2012 is when I officially started my business. And I decided early on I was going to specialize in small business owners
Yeah.
because there's a huge need in learning the skill set of managing themselves, managing time, managing others.
Mm.
And it all roots to I don't have enough time,
Yeah.
right? Um, Prior to starting my business, I was actually in real estate my whole career before this. And I had the opportunity to get mentored and to be trained as a business coach for
Mm.
real estate professionals. And I was teaching at that time, coaching specifically how to leverage through building a team and
Mm.
business systems all around real estate. And I loved what I was doing, but I kept getting the same challenges where things were literally being handed to them business systems like, do this, follow this, like, here's how to build your team, here's job descriptions, here's some models. Like, you're handling them all these resources. And I kept hearing, I'm so busy working in my business. I have no time to work on my business.
Yes.
And I was working with successful people. They're making good money. They've come to a level of success. And there was just this huge theme of lack of time management
Yeah.
and understanding how to prioritize the things it was going to take to get their business to the next level.
Mm-hmm.
And so I ended up transitioning out of that position. And then I had my son. I got pregnant. I had my son. I took all my maternity, my vacation. And I'm like, I'm not going back.
Yeah. You're like, I love this.
Yeah, and
Yeah.
well, I didn't even have the idea yet. I actually did consulting for a couple years, and during that time, I just kept coming back to this, like, there is a need, and it wasn't like you Googled and there was even now today, people don't wake up and say, "Hey, I know what my problem is. I need a time management coach or a productivity
Yeah.
coach." They're not on every corner, and it really wasn't that way, 12 years ago.
Yeah.
And I just created this company because I truly believed, after doing a lot of research and talking to a lot of people, that this is a skill set that can be learned. This
Mhm.
isn't a gene that you have. It's not a certain character trait. It's not something that somebody else over there can do and you can't do.
Yeah.
So that's how it got started, was just this belief that I could help people learn the skill sets that would make owning a business more joyful.
Yeah. Oh, I love that. And truly, it's one of the biggest challenges of business. When I ask people, I'll teach people all the strategies, and they're like, all right, Maddie, now I just need to figure out how to manage my own time in order to
Yeah.
do it. And a lot of small businesses, they might be a mom, they might have a 9 to 5, they might be doing it part time, they might be doing it full time. It can be really hard to kind of juggle. And
Yeah.
it's one of my biggest questions. It's like, Maddie, how am I supposed to get all of this done in one day? Like, this is nuts. When you kind of look at time management as your approach, kind of what is your general overall approach to time management?
Yeah. So my overall approach is that as a business owner, it needs to be holistic. So
Yeah.
it's not a one size fits all. It's not follow this strategy to the T. And if it doesn't work for you, you leave feeling like there's something wrong with
Yeah.
you. And
Mhm.
I think that that's a messaging that is so prevalent, and so many people have had that experience of, I bought the planner, I bought the program, I read the book, I did the thing, it's not working for me, so that just leaves there's something wrong with me.
Yeah.
So everything I teach is with fundamental strategies, but I believe everything should be customized, not just to obviously like your business, what support you have, but to your point. Are you doing this part time? Are you doing it full time? Do you have other responsibilities? You're a mom, you're a wife, you're volunteering at church.
Yeah.
Um, and then the other layer that is so important is our personalities are different.
Mhm.
And what works for you may not work for me, and vice versa. And if we don't honor what's unique about ourselves and actually take clues into what does work, um, I could just sum it up with this. My job is to find out how you work best and do that
Yeah.
on purpose on repeat.
Yeah, and I find that's what's so hard for me to talk about time management and productivity is 'cause I have a dog, but I don't have kids. I do this full time. I've been doing it full time. I've been working for myself since I was like 15. So it's
Right.
one of those things where you're like, every single person is different and everybody's brain works a little different, whether you have an attention disorder or whether you are somebody that works best, like most productive at night or in the morning. Everybody is
Yeah.
so different where it does have to be so tailored to who you are.
Yeah. So I'm going to share a story just to just
Yeah.
throw this as an example.
Mhm.
So I was working with a client of mine who was like she was the owner of a lending company. So she had lots of lenders, lots of people working in her office, but she also had a home office.
Mhm.
And she would tell me, I just can't get any work done at the
Yeah.
office, right? And you hear that, and most people hear that, and you're going to instantly say, of course, because there's people interrupting you and distracting you. But I knew that wasn't the case because we had worked together for some time.
Yeah.
And she had really good boundaries. And so I was like, yeah, it's not the obvious. Okay, tell me more. And so I would just tell, okay, you know what? Don't tell me anything else about your work at the office. That's clearly not working.
Mhm.
Take me to your home office. I
Yeah.
want you to take me through like the moment you're like deciding you woke up, you're walking into your office. And what I found was that, like with most things, there's clues in what's working that you can replicate in other areas.
Yeah.
And so she's like, well, I go light my candle, I turn on the TV to Judge Judy, I sit in my chair. Um, I take meetings, I take phone calls, and I'm like, tell me what else is around you. Like, tell me the environment. She goes on to
Yeah.
say that she's got this like white, fuzzy, furry um, rug underneath her desk, and that she had this tradition of like, she doesn't have shoes on, she's at home, and she had lit the candle, she's sitting in her desk, she starts rubbing her feet, and she's telling herself, it's time to go to deep work.
Yeah.
Like, it's time to work, right?
Mhm.
And I was like, okay, so now describe to me your office. Of
Yeah.
course, it's professional because professional above all else. And let's be honest, she was very clear Judge Judy on the TV was not professional. To which I actually pushed back and said, I know you work with your door shut a lot and you have a TV in your office.
Yeah.
What's wrong with Judge Judy if you're
If it
getting your work
works.
done? Because
Yeah.
to me, what's more professional is that you're getting your work done efficiently than not.
Mhm.
And I said, "Can you go to Ross and find another furry rug to put under your desk at work? And nobody's gonna know you to kicked your shoes off." And so it became like a little bit of a joke, but what really was working under there is you honor the person. There's clues all around us. We often ignore them because we're judging them.
Mhm.
And I believe it's our job to find out what those are, replicate them, and do them on purpose.
Yeah.
Because at the end of the day, all we want to do is our best work. All
Mhm.
we want to do is build this business, make an impact, provide for our families. And if we're in this constant fight of judging ourselves and what
Yeah.
that looks like, that's getting in the way.
Mhm. 100%. And I think it's one of the pieces that makes a lot of people feel like they can't be a business owner or they're not cut out for it is just because they haven't figured the like time management system that really works for them.
Yeah. Yeah, and to your point, you said I know we had chatted when you were on my podcast, and you had said you've, worked for yourself since you were 15, right?
Yeah. Mhm.
Well, so many business owners actually never started out working for
Oh,
themselves. They were great employees, and so
yeah.
in their minds, they're thinking, "Why do I wanna start a business? I want time freedom, I wanna
Yeah.
be in control of my own schedule," and what they don't realize is that those boundaries, structure was why they were able to thrive.
Yeah.
And so a little rebellion of like, now I can be in control of my schedule. So that means I'm not going to be in control of my schedule and we're going to
Yeah.
wing it and think we're getting the same results.
Yes.
Is interesting. And a lot of people don't often connect those dots of, well, the only difference is that if you worked well under structure when you were an employee, is that this time you get to create the structure. How
Yeah.
exciting is that? But you still need structure
Hmm.
to show up your best.
Yeah.
And when I'm saying you, I mean this person I'm talking about. Not everybody works really well in structure,
Yeah.
but if that's what had worked, why did we abandon that now that we're our
100%.
own boss?
Yeah, well, and like, you know, a little bit of my story as well as I worked for my family's business as a kid,
Mhm.
and everybody listening knows it as well. And I was so structured, like incredibly structured. I got 2 degrees in 3.5 years, and I
Mm.
started a business in the same time. I had a blog. I was running my
Yeah.
family's business. I was like so structured. I absolutely loved. I woke up at 5 a.m. I ate the exact same breakfast. I would go to the gym. I would come home, eat the same smoothie, go to my 7:45 a.m. class, do my thing, get my job done. And I was so rigid with it, but I had to be because I had a lot on my plate. I put a lot on my plate. And
Yeah.
honestly, when I think back and I look at like when I was my happiest, when I was my most like productive, I felt so passionate about life, I was structured. But
Yeah.
because I led to my job for my family's business led to so much burnout because I had too much on my plate that was given to me, too high of expectations, too much that was just going on with that. It led to burnout, and you hear all of this. Like, you either hear people talking about hustle and grind or like the 100% flow and don't make any lists and
Yeah.
don't tell any of these. I was like, all right, now let me go to the total opposite end of this pendulum of like, let me just like wake up and see what I want to do. And I found myself being like, I was like kind of depressed. I was like, what is
Yeah.
going on? I didn't have anything. I was like, I didn't really feel that purpose. I didn't feel that momentum. I didn't feel like super driven towards anything. And I realized like I am somebody that works under structure. It's not going to work for everybody. When people ask me, how do I do all the things? I'm like, I have a lot of lists. I know exactly what I'm going to do every morning when I wake up. I've just realized I'm type A, and that's okay. And some people work that way, and some people are going to work in that flow and be able to wake up and be like, all right, what am I going to do? But everybody needs some element of structure.
Yeah. Yeah. No, I couldn't agree with you more. And for me, when I was younger, I was way more like you. Like it just my husband and I he was actually just having a conversation with me a couple hours ago and something came up about my childhood
Yeah.
and we were talking about our 14-year-old and, getting
Yeah.
him to do chores. And he's like, "No, it's not that he's 14 and can't do chores. You were running your home." Like my
Yeah.
own trauma and things, right?
Yeah.
Like it's not like you're incapable at a certain age to like, be responsible. I'm like,
Yeah.
okay, granted. So it would just literally reminded me of like I had that in me and I was that way too. I worked full time all through college, like I did
Yeah.
all the things. But I also have what I would say to that is what served you may not always serve you. And
Mhm.
so another thing that I really like to do, just not just for myself but my clients, is just recognize what season are you in. And I don't mean
Yeah.
just age. I mean I actually do work differently in the winter when it's dark at
Me
4:30 and it
too.
feels like midnight.
Me
I
too.
I now have, my son and when he plays basketball, it's definitely a different work season because there's games every other day and
Yeah.
practices. I've had my own health journey and so that's a season.
Mhm.
And I think that if we run fast and that's natural for us, there's no judgment, but
Yeah.
can we have grace when that fast looks different in a different season?
Mm.
And are we able to down regulate and then adjust the schedule so that it's working for us and not against us?
Mm. Totally. How do you feel like people can really find that with themselves? Do you feel like it's trial and error? How do you really feel like people can find what works for them if it really is different for everybody?
Well, I think just like what you and I were talking about, there's clues. Like
Yeah.
yeah, like our
Like, mhm.
personalities were our personalities when we
Yeah.
were teenagers and in our 20s and things like that. And so I think that most people have an idea of like where they're starting
Yeah.
of who they are and what works. And then after that it is an experiment. Now
Mhm.
I have things, strategies that I teach all the time and I call
Yeah.
them foundational strategies. And I will teach it different for each client I'm working with based on what I've learned about them,
Yeah.
about clues of what's working and not working, where they're at, what their capacity is. Are they at burnout? Are what there's a lot of factors,
Yeah.
okay?
For sure.
But also, as good as I am and not tooting my horn, I say, you're going to go experiment with it. And the
Yeah.
data of what worked and didn't work, you're going to come back and we're going to tweak it again.
Hmm.
Because if we think that it's just like a magic pill or a I'm just going to pop this strategy in and if it doesn't work it's broken. I
Hmm.
want anybody that's ever done a block schedule, raise your hand. Everyone's heard that with time management. And if that has not worked for you in some capacity, I will say block scheduling absolutely does work, but are you too strict with it? Is it too
Yeah.
much? Is it honoring your own natural energy levels? Is it addressing how many fires you have to put out in your business because of where your business is at or what support you have? There's a lot of other factors, but
Yeah.
it doesn't mean that it doesn't work. It just might not look the same for everybody when you use such a general term of block schedule.
Yeah, 100%. Oh my gosh, I used to time block my day to like every single minute. It was so crazy. I can go back if I like scroll back to like 2020 in
It's
my
like a diary,
calendar,
right?
you're like, "Whoo, gosh, she was really with it when she was doing that." So you talk about block schedules, like something that I heard in your story that you said was like routines to sink into work. That's something that I do as well, as like
Mhm.
having a routine when I sit down. What am I doing to actually like program my brain into like, okay, this means we're starting to work. What are some of those other like tangible things that sometimes do work that you say they do work, but kind of just like a general overview of what some of
Yeah.
your tools may be?
Yeah, well,
Test
one
people.
strategy that I think has the biggest impact as a non-negotiable is planning our days.
Yeah,
And I get that I'm talking to a girl that says she's time blocking every minute of
I
of
used
her
to.
life,
Yeah.
but I wanna talk to everyone else that's listening and that,
Yeah.
you know, maybe it's not you're running a marathon day 1 where you're having this, like, block schedule all week and your weeks look the same. I think with a block schedule, you plan your days, but even without a block schedule, if you just start with planning your day, and when I say plan your day, it's 15 minutes.
Yeah.
And um, getting consistent with that will give you so many benefits. Now,
Yeah.
I prefer to plan my day the night before to the
Mhm.
next day.
True. Mhm.
But some people don't end their day the same time every day. They don't end it in their office. They might end it because they have recurring meetings. And so, what's more important is where in your schedule, whether it's morning or evening, can you be consistent with it?
Yeah.
There's some benefits to, there's pros and cons of both, right?
Mhm.
One of the pros to doing it at the end of today for tomorrow is it sounds like you woke up with the same energy and attitude every day, but I don't know if that was realistic every day. I don't
No.
know about you, but I don't wake up the same day, like feet on the ground. I'm going to
Oh
conquer
gosh,
the
no.
day. Life is amazing. I got this, right?
Mhm.
So why would I want to plan my day based on how I feel in that
At the end.
moment?
Yeah.
Right. And
Mhm.
so when you can create separation of when you're planning your day, which takes a different part of your brain and different processing than the doing. And then when you come in the next day, even though that might be variable and it may be up and down or a little bit different, your job is to just execute the plan you created the day before. And
Yeah.
now we can get some of those feelings out of it. And I just want to mention, since we already acknowledged people that love to go with the flow and how they feel, I'm not knocking that
No.
because there are days you do need to tune in and be like, this is not the day, X, Y, and Z, I'm making a different decision. What I'm talking about is when you start sabotaging yourself because you're like, I don't feel like doing that. I'd rather do
Yeah.
the fun thing. I want to do X, Y, and Z. When we start negotiating with ourselves, that's what I want to minimize.
Mhm.
And I find that can happen when you put the planning and the doing too close together.
Okay, I like that. Yeah.
Also, I'm naturally, and I think other people listening could probably, recognize this in themselves, is that I'm really optimistic. I don't care if today went to hell.
Yeah.
Tomorrow's going to
It's
be a
gonna be
good
better, I
day.
promise.
So tell me which energy you want to plan your day in. The I don't
Yeah.
know how I'm going to feel waking up, or the I don't care if today went to shit. And I'm like, actually,
Yeah.
all right, tomorrow we're resetting. Tomorrow's a
Yeah.
better day.
Yeah.
And so all jokes aside, like there's nuances. And what I
Mhm.
just shared is what works for me and how I'm leveraging optimism for tomorrow and that I don't wake up the same way every day. but maybe somebody else is like, actually, I am exhausted at the end of the day. Maybe they're in the
Yeah.
midst of burnout. Maybe there's some health challenges. And to be
Mhm.
able to focus and actually plan is not the best time. They're like, give me a cup of coffee and sitting at my kitchen table and I'll plan the best day ever.
Yeah.
Then do that.
Yeah, that's a good point. Like, are you more of that morning optimism or are you at the end of your day feeling good about the next day? For me, I love to plan at the end of the day because I know right now in my mindset, I know where I ended and I know what I want to do next. And I know that if I put it on a list, these are the three things I got to do tomorrow, I'm going to get
Mhm.
those three things done pretty much no matter how I'm feeling, unless it's like I have some big hormonal fluctuations. And so unless I
Yeah.
wake up and I'm like, oop, today's not the day, I will most likely get those things done. Where sometimes, like you said, in the morning, you can almost talk yourself out of being like, I don't really feel like doing that.
Yeah.
I like to have mine on the sheet when I wake up. For me, I find if I don't wake up knowing what I'm doing that day, all of a sudden it's like 11 a.m. and I've had a couple of cups of coffee. I've
Yeah.
checked some data. I've like responded to some messages. But I'm like, and then I sit down and I'm like, all right, like, what are the actual things I have to do? If I sit down and I am like, okay, let me figure something out to do today, that's when I find I lose a lot of hours of just like
Yeah.
putzing around.
Yep, I agree. I agree. The other reason why I think that focusing on 15 minutes a day and planning your
Yeah.
day is that with business owners, one of the challenges we often have is that we get into the habit of being reactive. So
Mm,
we're reactive to the text message, the email, what fire are we putting out? What does our team need from us? And there's a point where yeah, we cannot control everything. There are actual fires.
yeah.
But by planning your day, you put yourself in the driver's seat. You're much more proactive. And the way that I like to explain this is that if you were getting on a train and you're trying to get to point from point A to point B, and that's your plan for the day, that when you get pulled off, right, but pulled off the tracks, because you're gonna have distractions, you're gonna have interruptions, you're able to reset and get back on the tracks faster.
Yeah.
And maybe you do not get to point B. Maybe you got pulled off several times. I guarantee you'll be closer to your destination because you got back on track faster because you
Yeah.
had a plan than just swerving all over the road from one thing to the next, throw in some hormones, throw in some how I feel today,
For
throw in
sure.
all the unexpected things. You have no idea. And the day that you actually got to point B, would you even know it to
Yeah.
celebrate it if you hadn't planned your day?
Yeah, exactly. I feel like planning, I talk to my audience a lot. I do a Sunday evening power hour where for 1 hour, like 8 p.m. Sunday nights, I'm going to plan what I have to do, plan out my content, get an overall idea of like what I'm selling that week or what I'm talking about, just to like almost have a reset and like, okay, let me
Mhm.
actually start the week with intention. And then I say too, like at the end of the day is how I normally teach people to do it is, at the end of the day, just look and like it can take 10 seconds. Just know what you're doing a little bit tomorrow. Put the three things down that you know you have to accomplish. And then at that point, you know that, okay, I had this overall plan. And when I sat down for that 1 hour, and most of the time it takes, 15 minutes, because I knew those 15 minutes, I was strategized. I was really looking ahead. I was looking at
Mhm.
everything. I was really intentional that on Wednesday, if all of a sudden you're like, all right, it's like 4 p.m. I don't really feel like I've gotten much done. You can go back
Yeah.
to that plan and be like, all right, this is what that structured Maddie really wanted to do. And this is what I can do now.
Yeah, absolutely. I actually taught on my own podcast the whole I call it a daily wrap. So daily review and action plan.
Mhm.
I'll send you the link if you want to share it in
Please.
show notes. It is only 15 minutes, but it takes more than 15 minutes to explain it. But
Yeah.
it's 5 steps, 15 minutes, and
Mm.
it's about capturing things, right? So
Yeah.
yes, we're planning the day, but so much comes into our world as business owners. We've
Yeah.
got DMs, we've got text messages, we've got people chatting us on our project management
Yes.
task management system. And so when you think of all the places that information's coming into us at, how are you effectively gathering that and then getting it on your list so that you can reprioritize?
Yeah.
Because if it's Monday, you might know what your priority is for Tuesday and Wednesday, but once Monday happens, I guarantee something had changed to like now it might not be the most
Yeah.
number one priority. And I don't mean that we're talking about priorities like goals and bigger projects and things. I'm saying when things are coming in quickly, you have to reprioritize. We do it
Yeah.
every day. And so why not have a process, integrate that into how we're planning our days and making sure we have a way that things aren't falling through the cracks? Because
Mhm.
if things fall through the cracks, you know what that is? It's a distraction tomorrow when you're putting out a fire.
Yeah.
And so now you're being, again, proactive and not starting these fires because you
Yeah.
have a system that works.
Mm. A question I get asked a lot is people are like, "Okay, Maddie, like I know I have to work during these times, but like you talk about planning this so you know what to prioritize, but like they themselves don't overly know what to prioritize." How do you
Yeah.
go about telling people like really showing people as a small business owner who has, they got to market, they got to write, they got to make the product, they got to do all of these different things. How do you even talk about what to prioritize first?
Yeah. So I break it down into 4 areas of where every business owner is going to find their most productive high value activities.
Yeah.
And I suggest that you have those on a weekly basis. So what that means is you're not going to dip into every category every day. And again, it's not a one size fits all. So I can't
Yeah.
say, oh, check, you spent 3 hours in this category, you're good. It really depends on what the goals are and what strategies you're employing at that time.
Mm.
But if you're looking at, look, if I want to look back at my week and know, was I most productive with my time? It's going to be
Yeah.
these 4 areas. You'll be happy. It all starts with marketing and visibility.
Woohoo!
Yes, yes. So bucket number 1, I want you to think, I call them buckets because I had actually done this keynote where I had these literal buckets on stage and I had all this fake money that was like, a foot big
Yeah.
and I was stuffing the buckets with money and then when it was
Love that.
overflowing, it's flowing into the other bucket. So that's
Mm.
the visual for all y'all that are listening or watching.
Yeah.
So bucket number 1 is marketing and visibility. I say it's how you let the world know what it is you do and how you can help them. And
Mhm.
if you're doing well in that and showing up consistently in marketing and visibility, it's going to overflow and then you're going to show up and you're going to have sales activities.
Yeah.
And for every business, that's different. It could be a consultation, a discovery call, a proposal, like whatever your sales activities are.
Mhm.
It's a very high value activity. It's closest to the dollar. It's going to generate revenue, thus create a healthy business.
Yeah.
Which then is bucket number 3. So I specialize in service-based business owners,
Yeah.
but this could also be your products, right? So number 3 is delivering the service or product you're selling,
Yeah.
making it better, everything to do with the
Yeah,
exchange of
making,
money.
shipping, packaging the products, things like that.
Exactly, right? So
Mhm.
there's so many steps. Someone thinks like, "Oh, you created the product, cool, so that just like magically goes out the door." No, no, no. Like it's everything from beginning
Yeah.
to end. Now, to our what we're saying is actually bucket number 3 is high value, but it's the one that sabotages all else.
Yeah, it's the working in your business.
Yeah, and so it is high value because it is revenue generating. So you're like, of course, this is what I should be doing with my time.
Yeah.
However, we can rationalize and have our heads down in the servicing the client or the product, lift our heads up, and then what happens? This is your lane. You're like, where's my pipeline?
Yeah.
Like, I forgot to market this week and last week, and
No content went out for 4 days.
Exactly, exactly, right? And so but it was all in good heart, like, I was doing what I needed to do.
Yeah.
And when you feel like that bucket is cannibalizing all your time to where you don't have time to do marketing and sales, then you absolutely need help. Like,
Yeah.
you need to find another solution because you as the business owner can't be like drowning in that area of your business
Yeah.
at the expense of what's next week's sales look like next month's next months
Yeah.
down the road.
Mhm.
And then bucket number 4 is actually is about leading your team. So it's leadership, it's team building. And the reason I share that is because I had client after client over the years, many years ago, I obviously, said, if I have to slow down and delegate one more thing, if I had to have one more meeting, one more conversation, oh
Yes.
my gosh, I have to do another job description. Oh my gosh, I have to hire again. And it was always like reluctant. Like, I am
Mhm.
so busy doing these other things. Why am I doing this?
Yeah.
And it's interesting because I get that, right? Like, because we're runners. Like literally, like we're
Yeah.
runners. People
You're in
listening,
your
we're
own
runners.
lane.
We want to go
Mhm.
do the thing. But I would ask, where else can you invest time and actually get a multiple back on your time?
Yeah, really hiring.
It's people, right?
Yeah,
And so when we think of as a business owner, what is our highest value, most productive activities? Wouldn't it that be true that it would be investing in others so that if you poured an hour into them, they're giving you 8, 10, 20,
yeah,
even if it's a few hours a week? Where else can you get that return on investment? And yes, sometimes it feels agonizing and sometimes it feels like you should be doing something else. But I want to share that if you ended your day and you invested in your team, you were productive today. And can we
yeah.
celebrate that?
For sure. And I think hiring is one of the harder things of business. Through every business I've run,
Yes.
every business I have operated, no matter what, I think hiring is one of the hardest things to do. And it's also one of the most supportive things that you can do.
Yeah.
And like, yes, at the moment, it feels annoying. It feels like it's going to take a couple of months to get them into your system and how you really want them and to mold and to shape them
Yeah.
into a solid team member. It might take some time. But if you could sit and imagine having that perfect person that you've been dreaming up of like having this assistant or having this person that comes in and like takes all of the things you don't want to do off of your plate, like what is the value of that? It's endless. Like somebody that you can
Yeah.
fully trust that gets these things done so you then don't have to do the packing or the shipping or the making and all of the like working in your business stuff, which is a lot of times where product based business owners first delegate. And instead, you can work on more content.
Yeah.
You can work on getting collaborations. You can work on the working on your business things. And I think a lot of people put that off because they don't want the like annoyance of having to hire somebody.
Yeah. Yeah. I agree with you. It is one of the hardest things in our businesses.
Yeah.
And I will say that if you give yourself the, I don't know, permission to show up in that area, here's an unintended benefit.
Yeah.
When we hire someone and they're not the right fit,
Mhm.
I just generally, people I work with, we're all good people, right? I'm sure
Yeah.
you work with great people. And
Yeah.
because we're good people, we're not going to make the hard decision of letting them go because we say, what? I haven't trained them enough. I haven't invested in them enough. I
Yeah.
haven't explained to them enough. I haven't delegated them. My business doesn't have systems. It must all be me.
Yeah.
And I don't want that because the truth is, you can have none of that and have an amazing employee that succeeds. And you can have someone that would have done better under those conditions, but
Yeah.
that's not currently what had happened, right?
Yeah.
And so sometimes those decisions need to be made, and they're harder on yourself to make those decisions when you haven't really in your, in like when you think about it, okay, nope, I've done what I needed to do. I've shown up consistently. I was available. I answered the questions.
Yeah.
This is not working out. I'd
Yes.
rather it be a confident decision of this is not working out.
Yeah, yeah, and I've seen that in so many places. Hire quick and fire quick because there are certain pieces that there are people going to come in and you're going to be like, "Oh my gosh, they just got it." And you just have to find those people that it doesn't
Yeah.
take you so long. And you're going to run through a few and everybody out there that's ever hired knows you're going to have a couple that you're like, "This just didn't work." And everybody's a good person, but some people just have strengths and weaknesses and this one just isn't a good fit and you kind of have to move through there. I mean, I know so many people when they are looking to hire, they know it's going to be helpful. They're like, everybody says it's going to be helpful. Everybody knows this is going to take things off of my plate, but it doesn't
Yeah.
feel like it. But
Yeah.
eventually, it definitely does help people out. And if you
Yeah.
can find the right people, just being more specific in your job description, in the hiring process, like a gut feeling. A lot of times for me when I'm hiring, if I'm like immediately kind of like, that's normally
Mhm.
how I feel once they're in as well. If you really once you do a lot of hiring for my family's business, we would hire about 70 people every January.
Oh
And
my
so I've
goodness.
done I've done way too many interviews to that I'd like to admit. And so at a certain point you do a lot of hiring and you're like, all right, you
Mhm.
see the different personality traits, the things that you like, the things that you don't want.
Yeah. Man, when you know, you know. Can we
Yeah,
just leave it with that? Like,
for
there's no,
sure.
like, special strategy. Like, I'm hearing you say that, like,
Yeah.
I'm saying you know when you know after you've hired them, and I think you know too if you've had a lot of experience doing the hiring,
Yeah.
but, like, it often doesn't get much better, and so I feel like somebody's listening that I'm speaking to right now that needed to hear this is, like, if you know, rip
Yeah.
the Band-Aid off because your time is so valuable, and
Yeah.
every time you're putting into an employee is an investment. Now, I
Mm,
just got done saying it's the most productive thing only if you're getting an ROI. If you're
yeah.
not getting an ROI, like cut your
You're just
losses.
wasting time
Yes.
and money at that point.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Cut your losses. Um, one of the things I love is when a client of mine is having, I don't love this part. I'm saying that wrong, but like they're having challenges. They have an
Yeah.
employee and it's like, and they're like, oh, this must be the way it is and
Everything
whatever.
is, yeah.
And then they hire somebody and I see the sparkle in their eyes and they're like, they got it. And I
Yeah,
love
they're
working with
wonderful.
them. And I was like, great. So can we revisit this other hire you've totally told yourself was completely normal and you've
Like,
now
this is
increased your
just how
standards?
hiring is.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Once you get a good hire, you don't go back. You have
Yeah.
now seen the standards and you're like, oh, I'm the same leader and the business is the same. But now I got these two separate experiences of an
Yeah.
employee. That's such a gift.
Yeah, 100%. I know there's so many people out there that are like, yes, I wish I was at the time in my business that I could hire, but they're just not quite there yet. But they're
Yeah.
like, how can I manage time without being able to hire? How can I do this? We've talked about
Yeah.
planning, we've talked about like figuring
Yeah.
yourself out. We've talked about a lot of those places. Where do you find some of like the biggest mistakes are when people are trying to get more organized with their time as a business
Yeah.
owner?
I really want to answer that. Can I just say one more thing about buying
Yeah,
time? Okay.
please. Yeah.
So we are talking about employees and that can be expensive. I want to share that my first investment in buying back time was a housekeeper. Like,
Yes. Oh, I
first of
love this
all,
for you.
don't just think about buying back time in your business. Our time is whole. And
Yeah.
so I was spending a whole day Saturday and I'm starting a business. I have a young kid
Yes.
and I'm like, well, how valuable would it be that I can buy back my Saturday to have him be more present because then there's less guilt
Yeah.
that I was working during the week. And so for me, it first was like, can my business just make $400 a month to come twice a month and like we're good, like whatever it was.
Yeah.
It wasn't that because it was 12 years ago, but whatever the
Yeah.
amount was, right? It was like that was winning to me. My business was now
Mhm.
profitable enough to hire a housekeeper. I just fired
Yeah.
myself 8 hours on a Saturday.
Yes.
And then the next goal was to be able to have daycare because at
Yeah.
first when I started my business building it at 3:30 in the morning until my son woke up at 7 a.m. And
Wow.
so then the first transition was, can I afford to send him to preschool at the ideal preschool we would want as a family,
Yeah.
2 days a week? Can the
Yeah.
business justify that? Okay, great. And then the next goal was like, can I get 3 days? And then it was, mama's getting a week. All right.
Yeah.
He's like 3 or 4 years old and he's going to preschool for the week. Was my business actually bringing home any other money to the household in the first year or two? No, I was investing it in the business. But now I'm not cleaning my house. My kid's going to a nice preschool.
Yeah.
It's not costing the family funds money. And that was buying back time to
Mm.
invest in my business.
Yeah, 100%. I think this is such a good piece. A lot of my clients' first hire is a nanny, is a
Yes.
babysitter, is somebody to come and just help them, even if it's 3 hours a week. Getting 3 hours to spend
Yes.
to pay somebody to watch your child, to give you time to really work on it. Like that can be your first hire. It doesn't always have to be somebody, a social media marketer. It doesn't have to be somebody to make your product. It can be somebody to help you elsewhere. Oh my gosh, some of my friends, they have people come in, they have somebody do their laundry, they have somebody watch,
Yes.
like, clean their house, they have people watch their kids. Those are just as much of an investment into your time than everything else. I love that point.
Yeah. I had so when my son got older and he would have practices and all the things, and it was actually a time in my business that it was taking off.
Yeah,
I actually hired what I called a fairy godmother, personal assistant, and this person helped with stuff in the business, but
yeah,
really they were doing laundry. They would take my kid and drop him off at daycare, or, jujitsu practice, prep dinner, um, doing a lot of those things that when you're a mom of young kids and running a business, my time at that time in my business was much better spent in the business, so that when I sat down at dinner, I am completely present with my family, so that when
yeah,
I had my weekends, I wasn't running around about laundry and all the things. So I was able to buy that help in a way at that season. We don't have that now. He's 14. He does my dishes now. This is what we were
yeah.
talking about at the top of the episode, right?
Right.
Is like, seasons change. Oh, look, full circle moment. So seasons change, not just with your schedule, but the support you need. And when he was younger and there was a lot of extra stuff going on, I felt like I needed more help on my personal side than
Yeah.
reinvesting in another hire.
Mm.
And so again, there's no judgment. Start somewhere, like you said, a couple hours, and maybe it's getting creative and swapping with a friend. Like one day they're building their business and you're watching the kids, and the next day they're like vice versa.
Yeah.
There's a lot of creative ways to get focused, distraction-free time, and it's all about the journey, because if those investments are getting an ROI, then you have more resources to then buy other,
Yeah.
invest in other resources and other buyback time, time back time.
Yeah.
So, I just wanted to
I
say
love that
that
point.
before we
I'm glad you stuck
transition,
that
so
in there.
nobody's thinking, "Oh, great. Thanks for the advice. I can't hire somebody
I
20, 40 hours
everybody.
a week." Yeah.
No, I think that's great, and I think it's so important for so many people, and even just so a lot of my clients, they're stay-at-home moms, and like having somebody else in the house just to watch the kids while they're cleaning, or and it can be a couple hours a week, just uninterrupted time for you to be able to work and like really
Yeah.
dive into it is so important because without time, without being able to implement, you aren't going to be able to see the growth and the results and implement all the things that you need to do. It's
Yeah.
imperative.
Yeah. And I like to just always leave this with like a well-rounded story to say, like, right now I work 3 days a week from 9 to 3 o'clock. I
Yeah.
pick my son up every day. Like I have a lot of time freedom, and I've built
Yeah.
a business that allows that.
Mhm.
Uh However, it didn't start that way. For years, I would be up at 3:30 in the morning, sitting in
Yeah.
the dark in my office, building a business before my son woke up. I
Mhm.
was looking for resourceful ways. There was huge investment from my husband working overtime and things before the business was generating the money it makes today. And so no
Yeah.
matter where you're at in your journey, just know that you're on a journey. It's going to look different, and just figure out what it is you need then,
Yeah.
and don't leave this conversation with Madison and I comparing where we're at now to where you're at, cuz I don't know your whole story, but I know my story does not look my whole story doesn't look like what it looks like today.
No, mine doesn't either. And honestly, there's sometimes where I'm like, I need to go back to what I was doing in the beginning. And like you said, in the spring and the fall, for whatever reason, for me, like I am somebody that I have like times that I feel a lot more inspiration. The summer is not
Yes.
my time to feel super inspired. It's like hot, and I normally live outside in my bus. And so I'm always kind of like, I'm like, I don't know, I'm like warm and I just want to lay in the sun. I want to be like, be a lizard on a rock somewhere. And I don't want to
There you
be
go.
productive. So there's
Yeah.
different times of year even that
Yeah.
my business looks different. And when I first started, as we've already said, I was incredibly structured. I will look back at 2020 Maddie and be like, wow, like she hustled her little buns off. There was nothing else to do in the world. So why not
Yeah,
sit down
right.
and like work all day long? And that's what I did. And like she did
Yeah.
such a great job of working from 8 to 9 at PM, like every day, all day. And
Yeah.
she was the one that really got me where I am. And now it's been honing and adjusting and being able to have different seasons of life and a lot more freedom. And we talk a lot about freedom. And I really feel being able to be self motivated, manage your time properly, be productive, really understand what you have to do is the key to be able to build your freedom in the long run, because you have to get that hustle. You have to get the things
You
done,
do.
get everything
Yes.
done in order to have the freedom to work 9 to 3, 3 days a week.
Yeah. I do believe that everyone's journey when you first start out is you're grinding it. Like, and I want you to do it. I'm not get green lighting, grind it to burnout or grind
Yeah.
it to like a divorce, which,
Yeah.
this stuff
It happens.
happens.
Hmm.
I mean, like, don't think you're going to start a business in 3 half days, like, and that is going to financially be able to support you. Like, real, like, I think that people have been selling that laptop life, like all
Yeah.
that stuff. Like, you can get there, but it's not
Yeah.
day one.
No, not at all. And I think that's really tough. And I have a lot of my clients that come in where they'll be like, Maddie, I have like 4 hours a week max to be able to work on this. Like, what can I realistically be able to feel
Yeah.
like I can do in 3 to 4 hours a week? And that's tough. If you're one of those people out there, you're like, I work a 9 to 5, I have kids. I really have from like 7 to 9 p.m.
Right.
after the kids go to sleep at first to be able to get this stuff done. Like your story, you're like, no, I woke up at 3 a.m. in order to do it before. Sometimes you have to make it happen
Yeah.
because no matter how much you manage your time in those 3 to 4 hours, you do need to be able to have more than 3 or 4 hours at a certain point to
Yep.
expect the same results that you'd be able to get if you were working 12 to 20 hours a week doing it or 40 hours a week doing
Yeah.
it.
Yep. Absolutely. So I didn't mean not to answer your question. So I want
No,
to make
that's
sure I
okay.
do. But I
Yeah.
totally forgot your question
No,
now.
that's okay. We were
Something
talking
about
about
overall time management.
yeah, we were talking about kind of like the common mistakes that people really think, the
Yeah.
mindset mistakes, the
Oh,
tangible mistakes that people have when they're trying to learn how to manage their time.
yeah. So the top one that comes to mind is that people are too optimistic with what they can get done.
Yeah.
And so what we do is we say that thing's going to take 30 minutes. But like, where was the data in that? Was that just like it just flew off my tongue and like I want it to take 30 minutes, so it should take 30
Feeling.
minutes?
Yeah.
Yeah. And so when we're too optimistic with what we can get done, I told you I like leveraging optimism, right? Like I plan my day for tomorrow, but when you're too optimistic, you're setting yourself up for feeling like a failure every day.
Yeah.
And, I'll speak for myself. I don't know about you, but like, I don't show up my best when I'm thinking, you're a failure. You didn't get it done. Look at that task list. You didn't even get it all
Exactly.
done that you should have. And I have air quotes, got done.
Yeah.
And so, one way to combat that is to track your time. And it's not sexy and it's not fun, but
No.
man, there's so much data to be had there. And data is a big, like a word that a lot of people don't love, but there's information there
Mhm.
that is going to tell you, stop saying that thing takes 30 minutes.
Yeah.
Over and over, it's taking you 45 or an hour.
Yeah.
And when you can reprogram what you think time takes, it's going to help you schedule your time more effectively and it
Mhm.
will make you a better leader. So
Yeah.
even if you have no team at all, can you imagine if you hired somebody and your brain's been saying 30 minutes and so surely it should take them 30 minutes? Oh, but wait, they have no distractions. They get 15. And really it took you 45? Is that
Yeah.
fair? Like
Totally.
so, and the truth is that we're not, time is very abstract. And
Yeah.
so we really can't, oftentimes, we're not wrapping our minds around it. And so when you schedule specific tasks on your schedule, it's a different way of time blocking. So
Mm.
the time blocking I think you were referring to is like, my Monday mornings look like this, my Tuesdays look like this, and you have very similar time blocks week over week.
Mm.
Another way to start with time blocking is to take those priority tasks. You talked about your top three, and you're
Mhm.
going to put them on your calendar and you're going to answer three questions.
Mm.
What am I specifically doing? I.e., it does not say marketing. It
Yeah.
says, write
Yes.
the whatever XY blog post.
Yes.
Okay. Like we want it very specific. The more specific, the harder it is to talk ourselves out of it.
Mm.
Okay. Because we can talk ourselves out of vagueness. Marketing,
Yeah.
I'll get to that later. Write the blog post, that exact blog post, it's a little bit harder to talk ourselves out of it. Then
Mhm.
you're going to answer, so specifically, what are you doing? When are you doing it? Right? You put an event on your calendar. Is it at 10 a.m. or 3 p.m.?
Yeah.
And how long do I think it's going to take? Right?
Yeah.
Because you got to complete the time block. So when we go to a meeting, we're like, yeah, it's going to take an hour. I'm going to do an interview. It was an hour and a half. When you do the same thing with your priority, now you have the quote unquote data, which by the way, we're going to go back to 2020 and see what you were doing, right? Everything's time blocked and on there.
Oh, 1 hour chunks with everything
Yeah.
I had to do. Yep.
But if someone's starting out this way, what good information is that they put an hour, they got to the end of the hour, they were honest with themselves. No, I didn't get into my email. I wasn't scrolling social media.
Mhm.
I didn't go in the kitchen for a drink. Like it
Yeah.
really took me an hour and a half. They adjust it on their schedule if they can, or they need to make another block of 30 minutes. And now you're going to be less likely to keep saying that thing should have taken 30.
Yeah.
It also leverages something called Parkinson's law. So Parkinson's law states that tasks expand the amount of time given.
Mm.
And so when we have a whole day to work, we have 6
Oh
hours to
gosh.
work, 8 hours, and we have 3 things. Great, we
Have
got
you
those
give
3
me 3
things done.
hours to do those 3 things? You'll be like, "Here we go. We got it."
Exactly. But what if those really were your priority things and they got done in an hour and a half or
Yeah.
45 because you broke it out and said, this one's 15, this is an hour, this is a half hour. Don't do that math. It probably didn't add up to an hour and a half, but you see what my
Get
point
it?
is.
Yeah.
So when you do a start and an end, it's like you're running these little sprints
Mm,
and
I like
and you're
that.
giving yourself these boundaries of this is what I'm going to be doing for this block of time of 30 minutes, an
Yes.
hour. And so we got Parkinson's law working for us, not against us, because tasks
Mhm.
expand to the amount of time given. We got a beginning and an end. And we've visually been able to take something that's very abstract like time and visually put it on our calendar. And we've
Yeah.
been able to get very, very specific with it.
Mm.
One of the other benefits of this too is if you're a little bit competitive at all,
Yeah.
okay, right? Then you're going to be less likely to scroll social media and get stuck in your inbox because you're like,
I
I
gotta
have
be done
one
in
hour.
20 minutes. Yeah.
Yes. And
This
you,
is
so you
how I
have this,
was at the beginning. Oh my gosh. I would be like, okay, I said this was going to give me an hour. That means I got to like throw my phone across the room, turn the music on, and like be as productive as possible to get this done.
right. And so if you're only blocking out these high value, like high
Yeah.
priority items, you're going to have other time on your schedule that's not blocked out. And it's
Yeah.
going to get filled. It's going to get filled with email and all the other things that we talked about, but they're not going to be those top 3 priorities. But what I'm asking is that for those 3 things, maybe it's 6 that day, those priorities is that you're practicing all your best productivity focus habits. That
Yeah.
right? Is
Mhm.
like, can I just stick to this one task?
Yeah.
Like because I planned it, I know this is where I'm supposed to be and what I'm supposed to do. And so then you get these pieces of our day where and you start stacking that and you stack that day over day. You're not trying to be productive all day every day. I don't believe that's the goal. I don't think anybody is. You're only trying to show up and be your most productive self during these blocks of time where you're
Yeah.
practicing that distraction focused, you know, head down type of work.
Yeah, okay. So much in that. That is so good. I really love the idea of that your tasks expand. This is like in college, you had a full semester to do an essay and it was like the night before it's due, you're like, "Shoot, I got to write that last page," because it took you a whole
Yes.
semester. But if you're given it and they tell you it's due on Friday and it's Monday, you'll get that done really quick because you don't know you have that much time to do it. It doesn't
Yep.
always take that long. I think that's really big. Knowing how long something actually takes, as well as when you're tracking your time, understanding how long you're spending on scrolling your phone. You start to realize, oh my gosh, today I spent 4 hours on my phone. Oh my gosh, today I spent 3 hours just like checking emails and like
Yeah.
random stuff that you all of a sudden start to realize. And I like to do that, to tell people to do it for like 1 week, just like track every single thing that you do and how long it takes you to do it. So then you can start to say, oh, wow, like that task took me way too long. That is something that I should not be taking that long doing. And you can kind of just get an overall awareness of all of that as well. You said that you have some like focus things, like how can I be as focused and productive these
Yeah.
tools in these times? Do you have any tools, like tangible things that you feel like are to be your most focused, productive self that people really love?
Oh, you're asking me about like technology and apps and things, right? Yeah.
Anything that you
Okay.
have.
No, no, no. I'm just saying, like, I don't recommend any particular app or program, but there's
Yeah.
lots of them out there that will like shut you off your browsers and like turn off. Look, I'm a basic kind of girl.
Yeah.
Turn your phone on do not disturb or turn the
Girl.
volume off. Shut your email inbox. It shouldn't be open and up all day. And please, if you are getting your chimes, rings, and dings, like every time an email is coming scrolling across, like get all those notifications shut off
Yeah.
permanently and move to like I'm interacting with my email on purpose. I'm
Mm.
interacting with my phone on purpose, not
Mhm.
that all these notifications are coming at us.
Yeah.
Um, I default every time I load a new app on my phone. It's like, would you like
Yeah.
notifications?
Nope.
No, no, no. I'm like a Nazi. No. Those things, notifications, have no other job than to distract you. So, like,
Yeah.
if you're trying to add a little less distraction in your life, like just starting with those basics.
Mhm.
There's I actually interviewed the CEO of Focus at Will, which is like
Yeah.
this radio station. You take a quiz and it tells you what kind of like music that you're going to be listening to when you're doing work and for what type of work. And that's a really cool. I don't use that myself, but I've had clients use it and I thought that was a really cool option as well.
Yeah.
Um, when we're thinking of doing our own focused work, I call it the freedom focus formula. Okay. And so you're like pulling out all my little model. Like you were on my podcast dropping models left and
You were
right.
doing
And
the
now
same
you're
thing to
like,
me.
so
Yeah.
yeah, you're dropping, you're pulling out all the models and frameworks. And you know, what that is taking, so I ask a whole bunch of questions. So I'm just going to share some of those with you because anyone can really do this for themselves is being aware of when they are in that zone, like what was going on either around them, before them, in their body. And so this might mean, are you best able to focus in the morning? Are you best able to focus
Yeah.
mid-afternoon? Is it after you eat? What did you eat? Were you carb loading and then focusing? Probably not, right? Like, so
Yeah.
like what are you feeling your body with? What was the temperature in the room? Which is so funny that you said that, right? You're like, summers, I'm less productive because
Oh
I just
gosh.
want to like lay out in the sun, right? I live
Yeah.
in Vegas. It's like 118, 16,
Oh.
15. So, what was the temperature like? Is there certain type of work that you prefer to do behind the computer at the desk? Or I have a love seat couch in my office. So like if I'm doing like just big thinking, I'm not doing it behind my desk. There's too much
Yeah.
distraction. I'm sitting over here or I'm going for a walk and thinking about it. So get curious and observe what your environment is, what you're fueling your body with. We mentioned it earlier and went sliding right past it. What time of month is it?
Yeah.
Big. That's big. There's a lot of research to what time of the month it is and our
Yeah.
ability to focus.
For sure.
Also, you seem like you can get into deep work, like you deep dive. I deep dive too. To me, it's a distraction to do like Pomodoro, where it's 20 minutes, 5 minutes, 20
Yeah.
minutes. I like pulled back that whole framework on a podcast too. And I'm like, it works for so many people. Here's why it doesn't work for me. And the
Yeah.
whole real point of that episode was to say, like, this is a huge productivity app and method, and it does not work for me and it may not work for you. So
Mhm.
for me, I need a cleaned off desk. And for someone else, you clean their desk off, you might as well put them in a straitjacket,
Yeah.
right? And
Mhm.
so really looking around, like, what is your environment? When can you show up your best and get that focus? So there's a
Yeah.
lot of variations.
I
Experiment
love
with it.
Yeah, and I think a big piece to everything that you've said is that everybody is so different and that experimentation is so important. Some of my clients
Yeah.
that say like, Maddie, like I can't focus on anything for more than like 15 minutes. The Pomodoro might work for them because then that
Yeah.
forces them to be focused for that much longer. People say, lock your phone away or turn off notifications. Like some things really work. Like you said, people's messy desks, like everybody is so different with how your brain works, the time that you are allotted in your day to
Yeah.
be like fixed on your business. There's so many things. And so it really is testing a lot of different things, feeling, seeing what works for you, seeing what
Yeah.
doesn't. And it takes some time. Like I've been a business owner since I was 15. I've run a business and had a lot on my plate where if you're new to it, like don't be hard on yourself. It does take some time to figure out how your own brain works. And we move and we grow. Like
Yeah.
I've had different seasons and now I realize I've had to try to find like this middle ground of, working myself to burnout, being way too flow, being super structured. How can you kind of find this happy medium for you? It's like,
Yeah.
yeah.
I just do want to highlight too, one, medications, supplements can affect focus.
Oh
And
yeah.
it's, no one reads the fine print. If
Yeah.
you feel like that's not something you've always been dealing with and you see something drastic of not being able to focus, check your supplements, check your medications.
Oh gosh.
Um,
Yeah.
Hormonal changes just in stages of life. So when I referenced having some health challenges, mine
Yeah.
was major hormonal disruption.
Me too.
Um, and it absolutely affected how I could show up in my business. And uh, it's a longer road to recovery when you're looking at holistically healing those
Yeah.
types of things. And
Hmm.
so just observe without judgment. There's clues, and
Yeah.
it's worth like nailing it down. It's worth investigating and finding out what might be robbing you of that focused, productive
Yeah.
work.
When you're not, it's not that you're lazy in a lot of elements. A lot of it is like I tried at like, because I was trying to holistically heal my hormones, I would try supplements all the time. And I took
Yeah.
ashwagandha, literally couldn't do a single thing for like 3 weeks. I was like, what is going on? And then I'm like, oh, I started that supplement. That's probably not going to work for me. I tried so
Yeah.
many pieces and it's not that. Sometimes I think we blame ourselves like, oh, I've just been really lazy these last couple weeks. But you can ask yourself, for me, started taking a vitamin D supplement because it's getting dark out. I need it.
Hmm.
And there's different things that can really help and also things that can really impact you. I think that's a really big piece.
Yeah. Yeah,
Yeah.
absolutely. I feel like we brought it really full circle in the fact that we started with this is my methodology is yes, like figure out what works for you. We're all unique. And at the end of
Yeah.
the day, we're all just trying to show up our best. And we've talked about a lot of different strategies. There's fundamentals there. And I hope that every listener can hear, well, oh, that resonated with me. Oh, that did work for me at some point. What if I recommitted and reset? What if I got curious about it? And I will also say, don't try all this at once. Like nobody's going to not be going to the gym and then running a marathon. So when
Yeah.
we talk about habit change and habit behavior, if we're looking for long-term change, pick the thing you want to focus on it, make that a habit, then add something else and add something else. Don't leave here and go plan your days, track your time block for the week. I don't
We're
even know what else
starting
did we
on
talk
Monday.
about. Yeah,
Let's
the
do
focusing of your
it.
time. We talked about a lot of different things. Pick your thing, get
Yeah.
success with that, have that momentum drive you into the next habit and the next habit that you want to integrate.
Oh, Amber, that was so good. What a great way. We just fully circled it right on up. We
Yes, we
tied it with
did.
a bow. We love it. Amber, where can people find you, listen to your podcast, and get more of your methodologies?
Yeah, thank you for asking. So you can find me over at amberdelagarza.com. And my podcast is Small Business Straight Talk. And can I share a little quiz they can take on the
Of course,
website?
please.
Okay,
Yeah, I'll
great.
link it below too.
So I have a quiz, 3 minutes. It's the next level business owner quiz. So find out what is most challenging you and holding you back from getting to the next level. And in 3 minutes, you'll get a curated playlist of the podcast with specific episodes that address those challenges. Because
Mm,
what's more productive than being very, very selective with what episodes you go listen to?
I love
I have
it.
over 350 episodes. Don't go listening to all of
To
them.
all of them.
Focus on the thing that is challenging you in this moment. And so you'll get a curated, personalized playlist. You can get that at amberdelagarza.com/quiz.
Love it. That's such a great
Yeah.
idea. Amber, thanks so much for being here. This was so much fun. I loved chit chatting with you.
Yeah.
I'll link everything below and we'll talk soon.
Thank you. Thanks for having me.
How good was that conversation? I love talking about productivity and time management. Call me a nerd, but it is something that every business owner can learn so much about. And Amber is such a wealth of knowledge. If you enjoyed what she had to say, go check out her podcast, the Small Business Straight Talk podcast, or you can check her out on Instagram. I will put both links below. If this was an interview that you enjoyed, make sure that you are subscribed to this podcast. We put out a new episode every Tuesday and Friday. Following along, make sure that you never miss an episode. And if you give us a 5-star review, it helps us get this conversation out to more people. I hope you have a wonderful day. I love you. I'm rooting for you. I'm in your corner always. And I will see you in the next episode.